what's the worst that could happen? And so I was just thinking about it because of, what I do for work, just working with all of, the people that I work with. And even myself, we have to consider so many different things when it comes time for us to figure out where our next place of work is going to be. So, in the Navy, we don't fully get a choice. We get, like certain places that we could potentially try to request when we're going to, move to a different place and, work at another job, but we don't just get to choose. And so, once we see what we're working with and what we get to kind of pick from, we have to start considering how it affects our families, how it affects our finances, just, everything in our life and, where we're going to go, what we're going to do. And also, if it's going to be worth us staying in or if we're going to need to decide to go. So one of the things that, I really came to terms with years ago, so, many years ago, was that the one thing that I definitely didn't want to happen is exactly what happened. And so for me, I always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, a stay-at-home wife, and just take care of my family. That's the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. And so when I went ahead and stayed in the Navy, stayed on active duty, and had to deal with the reality of, okay, what's coming next after this? My worst case scenario came next, which was having to leave my family. And so, there was no getting out of it. It happened. I left, and we just had to work through it. And we had to start planning ways and times to make sure that we could see each other and spend time together. We had certain boundaries between, my husband and I that we had to set in place for one another. And so we just really had to be intentional about how we were going to go forward. Even though we didn't want to live this way, it was the reality that we were faced with. So we did what we needed to do. And so when I'm talking to people and, just discussing what they're faced with and the possibilities of what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do, and what they might possibly end up having to do, my favorite question, my biggest question to ask them is, what's the worst case scenario look like for you in this situation? What's the absolute worst case scenario for you? And so, they usually explain to me what that worst case scenario would be after they give it some thought. And then my next question is, okay, so then what do you do when it happens? Right? And so I find that a lot of people don't put that into their mind. So, we always want to hope for the best. I understand that. But I also want people to be prepared and plan ahead so that when the reality of whenever life does not work out the way you want it to, or in your favor, or in your, best possible case scenario, you already have been thinking about it. You have already been trying to, put some type of plan together for it so that, it might not necessarily make it easier to just deal with, but at least you have a plan and you can get through it. And that's a way that you can just build some resiliency in yourself. You never know how you're going to feel about a situation until you're in it, but at least I have something to resort back to help me kind of control a little bit how I'm going to get through this situation. And so, yeah, I just, really encourage you, think about it. Whatever the situation is, whatever, the outcome could be, worst case scenario, what am I going to do? And how, if possible, can I make it any, easier or any little bit better for me in that worst case scenario? So it's just some of my thoughts while I'm driving home. Ooh, I don't like how this looks. I should have listened to my husband when he tried to buy me one of them stands for the car. Okay, bye.